Good morning, my name's Ben Wales, I'm MD at Acando, and I'm standing between you and Andy talking about the stuff that you came to hear about. I just wanted to very quickly tell you why Acando is here. And actually the previous presenter in this spot framed it quite well, and he told a great anecdote about an organisation he was in where they said to him, "We don't need any of this benefit stuff," which conjured up wonderful images of how they might be justifying their projects. Also, Cranfield University, just along there, they published a paper just the other day, not long ago, where they report that 2/3 of projects are either marginal or a failure. And really why Acando is here is to hopefully change that through our practitioners having a fantastic record of delivery, obviously, but also through events like this. We'd like to raise the right conversation, participate, and provide input to the community on the right topics. So please come and find us, tell us what you're interested in, and then we'll use that to inform and direct our thought leadership program over the next year. Our stand's easy to find. I have no idea what number it is, but it has a skeleton on it, so you should be able to find it easily. So enough from me. This is Andy Jones, and what are you talking about, Andy? Governance? Great, over to you.
Thank you. So, my topic of presentation is the way you do governance is a waste of time and resources. So, and I do mean you, organisations, people, all of you, the way you do it is a waste of time and resources. So I want to start by asking a question. How many of you have been affected by bad governance? Let's have a show of hands. Yeah. Okay, I'm guessing about half. I'm guessing that possibly half of you are too embarrassed to raise your hand. I don't know. It could be a deodorant problem. It could be just that you don't know about bad governance. But I'm guessing that actually it's more than half. To start with, let's try and identify what is project governance. I think it's important to say that project governance is, well, if you ask any project professional, you guys, you ask organisations, you'll get a different definition. They'll have different start points, different end points, different scope, different purpose. So part of the problem is actually we don't know what project governance is. We can't have a standard definition, and that's really where we're going to start, and it's going to frustrate people. So people perceive governance badly because it's frustrating, because they don't know what they're doing, governance doesn't know what it's doing, and it's not defined properly. So let's look at some definitions. I'm not really going to read these out, but the APM, they're here, a standards body, so they should be pretty good at defining an industry standard for us. And they talk about governance, and they talk about it really as supporting communications at an organisation level, through the food chain up to senior stakeholders, etc. And also about ensuring the portfolio is aligned to the organisational objectives. So that makes sense to me. I think that's kind of a good idea. You go to ISO. ISO, wow, International Standards Organisation. Couple of sentences there, as far as I'm concerned, say absolutely nothing at all, really. It doesn't tell me anything about project governance, but that's what ISO seems to think it is. Let's look at itgovernance.co.uk. Now they list out, I think, 6 sort of basic principles of project governance, but they generally talk about cost and resource management, risk management, and those sorts of things. Organisational coherence is quite an interesting thing there. Seems to follow the theme slightly from the APM, but once again, it is different from what the APM have said. It's certainly different from what the ISO have said. HM Treasury, we all like them. They actually frame where project governance sits. So quite nicely there, it sits between corporate and organisational governance and project management activities, which is a pretty big space, I think you'll find. So I'm not 100% sure whether really any of those definitions are helping me to understand what project governance is, and actually what it is in the real world, how we implement it so that it works, and how we implement it so that it's not wasting time, resources, and ultimately cost. So let's start actually with, why does a project exist? Well, okay, organisations have a strategy. Most of your organisations have a strategy, do they? Ooh, lot of blank faces. I know our organisation has a strategy because Ben, who presented earlier, took us through it at the last management team meeting, and we have one next week, I think, to go through again. So we definitely have a strategy, which is good, and we use strategy to define our objectives. Now, those objectives, 3-year strategy, but the objectives will be defined down to much smaller periods. What's the objectives for a year? What's the 90-day objectives, etc. That then leads to a portfolio and programs and projects. Okay? That's good. This is where we get into the meat of what we actually do, that project management. So we define a portfolio, we define the programs and projects that live within that portfolio, with the idea that the projects and programs deliver benefits, see what Gerard was saying earlier, and the benefits should deliver the strategy. That's quite a nice, once again, nice, pretty, simple diagram, takes us through and says, you know what, this is actually why we do a project. Let's go into actually the governance principles, the meat of that. So now we know why we're doing a project. Now, I'm not going to look at all these, and there's, 14 of them. Interesting enough, a year ago, the APM had 11. I don't know why they've defined 3 more. I'm not 100% sure where they got those from, but I look at these and I think some of them are important. Point 7, all projects have an approval plan containing, where is it here? Containing authorization points. So that's going into that governance at a very sort of project level. That's not organizational, that's not even portfolio, that's stage gates and toll gates. Point 8, members of delegated authorization bodies have sufficient representation. That's a particularly scary sentence. That kind of makes me sort of think of the equivalent of Parliament. And we all know how efficient Parliament is at actually getting stuff done. A large number of these are quite convoluted. I think that sort of points 7, 9 and 14, if you want to read them, and you will get these slides afterwards, they talk about governance at an individual project or program level. The others are actually talking at an organisation level. So even there's still confusion as to what project governance is and how you do it. And once again, this is why it's wasting time and resources.